extracurricular activities.
This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! Face it, you're a neo-maxi Zoom dweeby. For the now successful children's cable channel Nickelodeon, 1989 would give them a bit of a roadmap on how to move forward going into the 1990s. First, there was the cultivation of the channel's homegrown talent. As Double Dare had been the show to put Nick on the map, a lot of people behind it spread out to other productions. While this meant a lot more game shows and game show adjacent programming, one of the biggest swings came from one of Double Dare's co-creators, former Nickelodeon secretary Dee LeDuc. Instead of another game show, LeDuc made the channel's first sitcom, a teen western comedy by the name of Hey Dude. And it was a success! Hey Dude running for 5 seasons from 1989 to 1991, and sticking around in reruns for 8 years after that, paving the way for future situation comedies like Salute Your Shorts and Clarissa Explains It All. Well, if one Double Dare co-creator can make a hit, surely one of the others could do as well. A native of Huntington Woods, Michigan, Robert Bob Mittenthal had moved to New York City shortly after graduating the University of Michigan in 1984, and quite quickly got a job with Nickelodeon, working his way up to the on-air promotions department before that fabled staff meeting that resulted in his co-creator credit on Double Dare. Since then, he had mostly stuck to the game show side of things, working development on shows like Think Fast and Make the Grade. But what if he was to break away from all of that in the same way LeDuc did? What kind of show would Bob Mittenthal make? Well, another thing Nickelodeon started doing in 1989 was updating and replacing their original decade-old programming. Pinwheel may have been the show that started it all, but it had ended production in 1984 and was looking pretty dated by 1989. With the development of the Nick Jr. programming block, a new show was developed to fill Pinwheel's role, Eureka's Castle. It had a similar structure with acquired shorts framed by original puppet adventures, but the production values were much higher and the puppets were more in line with the popular Muppet style. You Can't Do That on Television was in a similar position. While the children's sketch comedy show was Nickelodeon's first true success by any degree, it gave the channel its iconic green slime imagery and introduced Jeffrey Darby to the team, another one of the 4 Double Dare creators. However, it was getting a bit long in the tooth. Its early iconic child cast had aged out of the show entirely, the production wasn't lining up with the channel's ambitions, and show creator Roger Price had a tendency to move to France if a new season wasn't immediately greenlit. So Nickelodeon decided to put it to rest, and You Can't Do That on Television would air its final new episode on May 25th, 1990. Nickelodeon would continue to air the show in reruns for a few more years, but there was still a hole to fill. A need for newer, fresher, cooler sketch comedy on the channel with many of the same structural components that You Can't Do That on Television had. Episodes themed around a single idea, a core cast of young performers discussing that idea in a central location. Sketches with a major kids versus adult bent. Stuff like that. So in the same way that Eureka's Castle replaced Pinwheel, Nick had Bob Mittenthal make a show that would replace You Can't Do That on Television. And perhaps it would be the perfect show to showcase another thing that Nickelodeon started doing in 1989, filming at Nickelodeon Studios. While the studio space at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida wouldn't be open as a theme park attraction for another year, Nickelodeon Studios began filming Super Sloppy Double Dare in April of 1989. Florida was gearing up to be the Hollywood of the East, and when Nickelodeon Studios did open to the public, they wanted a show that lived up to that idea. Not just filmed at Nickelodeon Studios, but cast with child actors from Florida, outside of the usual New York City talent agencies. Nickelodeon is committed to casting where it is producing. We want you living at home and going to bed in your own bed. That's normal. So, in May of 1990, Mittenthal got to work producing a brief pilot that could be shown at the 3-hour Nickelodeon Studios grand opening special. An open casting call was made through talent agencies and schools in Central Florida, and a quick cast of local teen actors were selected, including future Backstreet Boy Howie Duro. And so, when Nickelodeon Studios opened on June 7th, the world was finally introduced to well, something that didn't have a name yet.
Pretty good job. Pretty good. Who says you freshmen are good for nothing? You can be trained, like dogs. All it takes is patience and repetition.
Welcome Freshmen was among the show's working titles from the very beginning, and so was Welcome Fresh Meat, which to me obfuscates the show's core idea: the struggles of young adults as they enter their high school years in comedic exaggeration. We're kind of trying to demystify high school a little bit. It's a really exaggerated, over-the-top version of high school, but I think we can give kids some idea of what to expect. A solid premise, and the show went from pilot to full season production. The only cast member to carry over from the pilot was Mike Speller, playing the school's vindictive principal, Mr. Lippman. Another round of auditions were carried out, and a fresh batch of 5 young actors, once again local to Central Florida, were selected. As Nickelodeon had publicized that they'd let these young actors live out their normal lives, the show was only filmed on weekends, with none of the usual on-set tutors, at least at first. And so on February 16th, 1991, after many weekends of filming, Nickelodeon premiered Welcome Freshmen.
Every high school has a Mr. Lippman,
The word is out on Welcome Freshmen.
but they usually got more hair.
Welcome Freshmen. It's Nickelodeon's guide to getting you through high school. Same.
I'd pay to get detention with Kevin.
Pay!
Before I heard Merv sing Mystery Meat, I ate cafeteria food every day.
Get a serious attitude problem.
It saved my life.
Watch Welcome Freshmen, weekends on Nickelodeon.
Welcome Freshmen revolves around a teen friend group, freshmen who hang out at the mall to talk about what they've been doing and what they've been learning at school. There's Kevin, played by Chris Loban, the self-proclaimed cool kid and ladies' man who goes about selling products that you'll need to survive the 9th grade.
The amazing new Vice Principal Impersonator Kit comes complete with this shiny cue ball wig, realistic Hear Everything ears, and a PTA-certified name-taker clipboard. Order yours now and you'll also receive this free booklet of great authority figure catchphrases, guaranteed to take the wind out of anyone's sails.
Where were you in the test-up brains, Buster? Your name?
Forgot? What do you mean you forgot? You'd forget your own head if it weren't screwed onto your shoulders. Name? I'm afraid we can't condone that kind of behavior here. You're in hot water, mister. Let's have your name.
There's Walter, played by Rick Galloway, the not-so-bright slob who often finds himself the butt of the joke.
Tell me, sir, do you know what a microchip is?
Sure, they're like these, only smaller.
No thanks. Pathetic, isn't it? Excuse me, sir. Could you tell me what a bod is?
Fine. Sure, they're like those girls in that swimsuit issue you have under your bed.
Oh, there you have it, folks. The face of ignorance. Not a pretty sight, is it?
There's Alex, played by Jocelyn Steiner, the fashion-conscious material girl who always has a snide remark, even towards her best friends.
This place is like a nursery school. There's nowhere to eat in peace. Give me back my attendance records!
No way, dog breath.
There's Tara, played by Jill Setter, who concerns herself with environmental and feminist causes, which you think would see her getting along better with her hippie parents, but thinking your parents are out of touch is just that universal.
Can't you just act like normal parents?
What do you mean, honey?
You don't care where I go, what time I come in. There are no rules around here. You never even punish me.
Rules are just a part of the authority trap that many parents fall into.
And we feel that punishment is very negative.
But... Ah!
Hey, that's Native American pottery.
Yes. Isn't that great? Our daughter's total disregard for material possessions.
And finally, Merv, played by David Roden, the nerd of the group, who goes around the school filming his Merv-umentaries, detailing the ins and outs of school life, often to exaggeration.
Typically, big jocks respond to insults in a more violent manner. What else would you expect from a bunch of apes whose only goal in life is to cream the guy with the ball?
Hey, freshman, think fast.
Ha! I caught it. See? I told you! They're animals!
Each episode sees these 5 kids taking on the subject of the day, from self-expression to technology to our relationship to authority, reflected in sketches where the kids find themselves struggling against the school staff, parents, and upperclassmen. Wait, is that Jim Brewer?
Hey, nice shades, freshman.
Oh, give me a break. You wouldn't pick on a girl, would you?
Try me.
See, and they say people have forgotten what it means to share.
There's Principal Lippman, of course, who hates freshmen so much that he daydreams about stand-up routines tearing into them.
Hey, so when is a freshman not a freshman? When he takes a bath! Oh, you're just to me. Thank you. So, what is the freshman word for sitting around, watching TV, and picking your nose? Homework! Thank you, ladies and germs. You've been great. I've got to go lose 100 pounds of ugly fat. That's right. I'm expelling a freshman. Thank you. Bye-bye. Mwah.
There's the boys and girls gym coaches, Coach Roach and Coach Rochelle, both played by Tracy Frankel, who takes their students' complaints about the class and twists them into even more gruesome physical activities.
The little flower girls want to stand on their heads and make baskets. Well, I think we'll do just that, ladies. Only we'll do it the Coach Rochelle way. All right, ladies, you said you wanted to make baskets, so make baskets.
Look on the bright side, Alex. At least we're not eating junk food.
Come on, you wimps, get those balls up there. More arc, come on, you lazy wimps.
Much more likable, but still quite annoying, is Mr. History, played by Phil Card, who shows up at inconvenient times to show us visions of freshmen past, from the caveman days to the Roman Empire to the Wild West to the swinging 60s.
I wanted to relate my feelings about the hall monitor. He's always invading my space and bumming my load.
I support what Planet Merv is saying, Carl. The hall monitor is a complete square. Right on.
And so our freshmen are put through the ringer, going to the mall at the end of the day to reflect on what they've learned, or in most cases, didn't learn. Welcome Freshmen came out in a time where kids versus adults marketing was commonplace, where something as simple as bubblegum showed adult authority figures as antagonists who hate everything you cool kids are into. Nickelodeon didn't tap into that marketing trend nearly as much as you'd think. Empower kids, sure. Make them feel good and confident and get them involved with the channel, absolutely. But it was rarely at the expense of adults. Adult characters on Nickelodeon shows could be buffoonish or out of touch, and occasionally butt heads. But they weren't often the enemies of the child characters. Many times they offered support and love and were on the same team. See Mr. Ernst on Hey Dude, or the Darling Parents on Clarissa Explains It All. Welcome Freshmen was a huge exception to this. It was easily the most grown-up suck show of its era. You Can't Do That on Television also had gross, antagonizing adults, but the scenes presented were often cartoony and over-the-top and didn't apply to real-life situations. Kids can't quite relate to the experience of being in front of a Mexican firing squad. Welcome Freshmen was much more focused and grounded, presenting very specific experiences heightened to comedic effects. Ideas like wayward crushes and struggling with academics and trying to be fashionable. These are things nearly all of us have dealt with in our lives, making these young characters very relatable, even in these wacky scenarios they end up in. I remember my high school pretty well, and it was a pretty rough experience for me, pretty bruising. And I think for a lot of kids it's like that. There's a lot of pressure about high school and a lot of scary things about going into it. And I thought if you take those scary things and turn them into comedy, you're doing a service for your viewers. Welcome Freshmen presents itself as being on your side, you little 14-year-olds, with a rocking guitar soundtrack and skits intercut with these grungy, black and white candid shots of real kids in school, it felt a degree more authentic than high school comedy contemporaries like Saved by the Bell. Aesthetically, it was closer to skate TV than You Can't Do That on Television. And that is, to be clear, all marketing. Welcome Freshmen was no more authentic than those bubble tape commercials. And for the sake of comedy, these 5 young 9th graders were as much comic exaggerations as the adults. It's an everyone is stupid kind of show. And is it funny? Well, you know the spiel. Comedy is subjective, and it ages worse than most other genres, yada yada yada. But I think Welcome Freshmen actually holds up pretty well, and got some decent chuckles out of me rewatching it for this video. The show was about as edgy as you can reasonably get for Nickelodeon, with some PG-level jokes on puberty and underwear, but it never crossed the line into inappropriate. It never felt like grown-ups pushing child performers into uncomfortable spaces, like a Dan Schneider production. This is the first show we've covered that has a scene set in a sex ed class, the joke being it's not quite as exciting as the male students think it will be.
Behold the amoeba, the key to understanding reproduction. The amoeba reproduces by splitting into 2, a process known as cell division or mitosis.
And since we're making all of these comparisons to You Can't Do That on Television, yes, there is some cross-dressing humor, but the humor comes from the exploration of gender roles, not from pointing and laughing at the boy in the dress. It's also equal opportunity cross-dressing, with the girls dressing up as guys just as often to learn how hard finding relationships are from the male perspective.
So, what brings you to the bulletin board on a gorgeous day like today?
I'm waiting for my boyfriend.
Hey! Is this jerk bothering you?
Yes.
What else could possibly go wrong? Hey, girls! Want a party? We won't take no for an answer, ladies.
Okay, maybe that one's a bit too much. But for the most part, I think the show has aged fine. In fact, there are some forward-looking jokes that you might not expect from a show of this vintage, like jokes about having a cell phone in class.
Hello? Tara? It's me. What's up?
I was just on my way to the girls' room. How's social studies?
Well, it's hard not to get distracted, especially when I'm sitting next to Billy Cushman. He's so gross, Tara, and he's barely a mammal.
Welcome Freshman's writer's room included a lot of fresh, up-and-coming talents who would go on to have interesting careers. Highlights include Ann Bernstein, future senior editor of Nickelodeon magazine and a regular scriptwriter for MTV's Daria. Michael Rubner, who still works at Nickelodeon as a writer and producer for The Loud House and its various spin-offs. Robert Layton, who would go on to be a cartoonist and puzzle designer for The New Yorker. Jay Martle, who would become the head writer for Key and Peele. And, holy crap, future Saturday Night Live head writer Harper Steele. All of that talent under the supervision of Bob Mittenthal and Tim Hill. Hill had done some question writing for Make the Grade, but Welcome Freshmen was the first headlining gig for the future Rocko's Modern Life head writer and SpongeBob SquarePants co-developer. A lot of fresh writing talent, of course, meant a lot of fresh ideas, and Bob Mittenthal actually wanted to make sure those ideas got a chance to thrive. We've discussed before how much research Nickelodeon did during Jerry Laybourne's tenure, never passing up an opportunity to screen test, survey, and collect data. Worried that Nick wouldn't get Welcome Freshmen, Mittenthal actually asked for a delay on all of that information gathering. I kind of asked that I get a couple of weeks on the air before they start trying to research it with the public, just because I think there's a danger of being overreactive to stuff. It's a different enough kind of show that it will take people at least a week or two to sort of get into it, but I think once you buy into it and you know the characters, it's tremendously funny. That's a pretty big ask for your first solo show, but Nickelodeon did it. Things weren't going quite as smooth on the actor side of things. Being a degree removed from the usual child actor ecosystem, The kids of Welcome Freshmen started forming their own cliques, and there was even some bullying at the expense of Rick Galloway, who had been homeschooled and was pretty emotional on set. Dude, I was a total dick to Rick. I owe that guy so many apologies. I was probably trying to overcompensate for being a nerd, and Rick was a dude that we always picked on. The worst thing I ever did was we were in our little break room and we were eating dinner one night, and Jill Setter was talking about how her school was doing an Adopt a Whale program, and I turned to Rick and said, "How does it feel?" Because Rick was a little chunky back then. And he got up and cried. He left. I didn't know that Rick had been adopted. It got to the point where some of the moms had to get involved to get the bullying to stop. The Welcome Freshmen cast did quite a bit of cross-promotion as well, doing meet and greets at Nickelodeon Studios, competing in special episodes of Get the Picture, Nick Arcade, and Double Dare, and performing a Star Trek parody in an episode of Launchbox, Nickelodeon's collaboration with NASA. It was clear that Welcome Freshmen was being positioned as a cornerstone show for Nickelodeon Studios. And yet, that didn't quite stick in the long run. Season 2 came with a few adjustments. The talk about the episode's themes at the mall segments were dropped completely, stepping away from the you can't do that on television format. And segments were introduced that didn't involve child actors at all. My guess to speed up production, stuff they could film during the week while the actors were at school. Sketches like career counselor Mr. Royd, played by Jay Martle, discussing a potential career for a student, and then having a complete breakdown.
But I didn't! No, I became a high school guidance counselor, okay? I sit in this stuffy broom closet of an office and listen to this delusional pipe dreams of students like you and barely make enough money to pay the rent on my drafty shack! But at least I can look myself in the mirror in the morning! Now get out of my office!
Drop by next week for more important advice from Hawthorne's career counselor, Mr. Royd.
I hate my life!
And then there's Mortis the Safety Tortoise, played by Mark Sardo, where a guy in a turtle costume tries to teach you safety tips, but ends up getting hurt himself. It has nothing to do with the high school setting and feels entirely out of place, like an All That sketch that showed up a few years too early.
Hey, Mortis, catch! I can barely see. Careful. Wait. Hey, you turned out the light! You turned out the light!
And then when it came time to make Season 3, something happened. Bob Mittenthal stepped down from the writer's room, leaving Tim Hill in charge. Roden and Setter left the show, meaning Merv and Tara had to be written out, and Welcome Freshmen switched from sketch comedy show to sitcom.
Hey, are you upset or something?
No.
Is it because Brandon turned you down and laughed in your face?
How did you know that?
Well, the whole school's talking about it.
I'm such a jerk. Whatever made me think that Brandon would go to a dance with me?
24-minute stories with wordplay, comedic misunderstandings, and long-term character relationships. The school set was completely rebuilt, and characters were shuffled around. Now that time was a factor, Kevin and Alex became sophomores, while Walter was held back a year. New characters were introduced, such as Freshman Manny, played by Nicholas Caruso, who still hasn't quite put away his childish things as he enters the high school life. There's Freshman Aaron, played by Arian Ash, the strong-willed girl type who will try out for the boys' wrestling team, and Aaron's older brother, Junior Grant, who becomes an item with Alex.
You're acting like an idiot.
Why? Because I'm still talking to you?
You don't know what you think you know.
I know what I saw, and it wasn't what I expected. Doesn't this mean anything to you?
Isn't this the one your grandmother gave you?
Don't try and change the subject.
Mr. Lippman became an even bigger presence on the show, while the more fantastical adult characters completely disappeared without mention. No more Mr. History, no more Mortis the Safety Tortoise, even Coach Roach didn't make the cut. But don't worry, now the school has a Scottish groundskeeper. Hey, wait a minute.
McBroom, what are you doing? I thought I told you to put up more lights for the portrait.
I don't know if the wiring can take much more. She's overloaded as it is.
It's a painting, McBroom, not the Astrodome.
Hey.
just made an enemy for life!
The plots for the sitcom season stuck to fairly stock stories. Walter becomes the target of a bully. Manny has a crush on an older student. Everyone tries to find a date for the big dance. Standard stuff. A weirder plot does pop in from time to time, though usually with a caveat to make it less weird. An asteroid crashes into Walter's house and brings with it a space plague. Except it isn't an asteroid, and the plague is just a reaction to some off-frozen yogurt. A prisoner that looks just like Mr. Lippman escapes prison and switches places with the principal. Except it's all just a dream.
So it was all a dream? There is no shiny top?
Shall we check in at the infirmary, sir?
No, I'm fine. Besides, we have a lot of work to do.
Season 3 is a very dramatic shift in just about every way. And the reasons for that shift are fuzzy. Director Adam Wiseman, who got his start on Welcome Freshmen, believes it was just a case of Nickelodeon chasing trends, specifically trying to tap into the popularity of NBC's high school sitcom Saved by the Bell, and he personally found the change to be a positive one. It opened up a lot of ideas and stories going in that direction. For me, I enjoyed it. Again, it was another opportunity to try something I hadn't really done much of before. Oh, okay, so now we're getting into situational comedy and fewer sight gags. I didn't see it as this enormous shift, it just seemed like a logical progression. I suppose it comes down to personal preference. I do think the show lost something in the transition from sketch show to sitcom. A bit of that grunge edge that tried to connect with teenagers directly just vanished. The sketch era was more its own thing, while the sitcom era invites comparisons and gets lost in the shuffle. It didn't look as good as Saved by the Bell, and it didn't stand out in what would become a crowded genre. At the same time, Nickelodeon was crowding its own channel. Between seasons 2 and 3 of Welcome Freshmen, Roundhouse premiered, an even hipper teen sketch variety show, and with it brought the SNCC programming block, destination television for the young teen crowd. This is my own speculation, but the genre switch may have happened because having two sketch shows might call for comparison, and Welcome Freshmen would be seen as less cool. So the switch to sitcom might have been an attempt to keep the show distinct on the channel, while keeping it simple enough to remain a Nickelodeon Studios feature. There's still many vague details I'm afraid my research couldn't clear up. Did Bob Mittenthal leave because of the change, or was the change motivated by his departure? If I ever get a chance to talk to the man and get more details, I'll be sure to add an addendum to this video. Season 3 came and went, then Season 4, with very little in the way of changes. By now you know how the story goes. Young actors outgrowing their roles, older productions making their way for newer ones. 15, Welcome Freshmen, and Clarissa Explains It All premiered in a 2-month span in 1991. Nick's promise towards live-action programming in the 90s, the first Nickelodeon Studios generation. And they would all basically go out the same year as well. Welcome Freshmen's final new episode airing on February 19th, 1994, Clarissa's final new episode on October 1st, 1994, and 15 leaving the channel entirely on June 25th, 1994. Welcome Freshmen didn't have a proper series finale, though at the very least Walter got to move up a grade.
Hey, Walter!
Congratulations.
What's wrong? Aren't you psyched?
It doesn't seem fair. Just when I got used to being a freshman, they go and make me a sophomore.
Welcome Freshmen would rerun for a few more years, meaning it would share channel space with All That, which pretty much eclipsed it as the Nickelodeon sketch show of the 90s. Catching reruns always felt like a gamble. Were you going to get a sketch episode or a sitcom episode? As a young fan of one and not the other, I personally just gave up on Welcome Freshmen reruns after a while. The series would air its last on Nickelodeon on October 27th, 1996. In 2015, a few loose episodes would end up on The Splat, the Nickelodeon nostalgia block on the sister channel Teen Nick. But Welcome Freshmen really doesn't seem to have taken hold of memory lane the way many other 90s Nick shows have. It's had zero home video and streaming presence, and its survival has relied on old VCR recordings and file traders. Thankfully, all but 2.5 episodes have been tracked down, and at the time of this writing, you can watch nearly all of Welcome Freshmen on YouTube, albeit in the poor quality you've been seeing throughout this video. Welcome Freshmen was a good show. Again, I preferred the sketch seasons over the sitcom seasons, but feel free to disagree. The sitcom seasons are still perfectly watchable. However, what it represents for Nickelodeon is how rapidly things were changing, both for the company and for American pop culture in the 1990s. Here was a show that was already meant to be a fresh, updated replacement for one of their older programs, a headline attraction for their new studio, a cast of local actors who could be used in cross-promotion, and the big breakout project for creative talent cultivated within the company. And within just a few short years, all of that was irrelevant. What's considered cool changes rapidly, and almost overnight, newer, cooler shows showed up on the channel to push Welcome Freshmen out. Nickelodeon Studios started favoring large, set-piece game shows and variety shows with musical guests to emphasize the theme park attraction nature of it all. The whole Hollywood of the East idea died pretty quickly as most media companies refused to opt in, making the whole casting Florida locals idea less and less of a selling point. And so the Welcome Freshmen kids got pushed out for Hollywood and New York young talents as the face of the channel. Bob Mittenthal left the show halfway through, and it made a sudden right-hand turn in genre to compete in other ways. It's staggering how quickly the show went from top of the heap to down to the bottom. You can be the flashy new thing, but that'll go away in a blink of an eye. Welcome Freshmen was an important show for Nickelodeon. It brought Tim Hill into the fold. It helped kick off Nickelodeon Studios. But it feels like a lot has been left unsaid about its production and its place in the channel. That's for the past, though. All that's left now is the show itself. And Welcome Freshmen is pretty good.
Nick, Nickelodeon. Nick, Nickelodeon.
Next time, enough with sketch comedy, enough with sitcoms. I want something spooky. Nickelodeon takes a stab at children's horror, and we follow along from its Halloween special pilot to its modern revivals. Today's research shout-out once again goes to Slimed, an oral history of Nickelodeon's golden age, which has more words on Welcome Freshmen's production than any place else. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support Knacks and other Pop Arena projects, consider contributing to my Patreon. Every dollar goes to production values, research materials, and car repairs. I bought a used truck, and I've already had to take it to the shop 3 times. You can also support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, leaving a comment, following me on social media, sending a one-time donation through PayPal or Coffee, and sharing knickknacks with all your friends. Thank you again, and remember, Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights, and free Palestine.